Every day, someone walks into a luxury boutique believing they are buying from one special brand: a Louis Vuitton bag, a Dior perfume, a Tiffany engagement ring, a bottle of Dom Perignon. Each product feels separate, personal, almost sacred. But behind many of those famous names is one machine, a French empire so large it turned taste, status, heritage, and desire into a business model. To the customer, luxury looks like choice, different stores, different logos, different histories. But at the ownership level, the map looks very different. LVMH controls more than 75 maisons across fashion, leather goods, jewelry, watches, wine, spirits, beauty, hotels, and retail. The illusion is variety. The reality is concentration. This is what makes LVMH different from a normal company. It does not sell one product. It sells a ladder of aspiration. A teenager buying Sephora, a young professional buying their first designer item, a millionaire buying jewelry, a billionaire staying at a luxury hotel. LVMH is designed to capture desire at almost every level of wealth. The genius of the empire is that customers rarely think about the empire. They think about the dream, the leather, the bottle, the box, the boutique lighting, the feeling of being treated like someone important. LVMH does not just manufacture luxury goods, it manufactures the emotional environment that makes the price feel secondary. And the man who built this machine is not a designer sitting with fabric sketches. Bernard Arnault trained as an engineer. That matters. He did not look at luxury like an artist. He looked at it like architecture, structure, margins, control, distribution, family ownership, and long-term compounding. That is why this story is not really about handbags. It is about power. How do you take fragile heritage brands and turn them into a global cash machine? How do you make scarcity scalable? How do you convince millions of people that paying more is not irrational, but proof of taste? The story begins in 1984, far away from glamorous runways. Arnault set his eyes on Boussac, a bankrupt French textile group. To most people, Boussac looked like a disaster. Debt, old factories, weak assets, and political baggage. But Arnault saw the one jewel buried inside the wreckage: Christian Dior. This was Arnault's first major lesson. Distressed assets can hide priceless brands. A factory can die, a balance sheet can rot, but a name like Dior carries memory. It carries status. It carries emotional equity that can be revived if the operator is ruthless enough to cut everything else away. Arnault's restructuring was brutal. He sold assets, cut divisions, and fired thousands. Critics saw betrayal. Arnault saw survival. That is where the nickname came from. The wolf in cashmere. Elegant on the surface, predator underneath. The move was cold, but it taught the luxury world a warning. Arnault was not sentimental. After Dior, Arnault understood the formula. Luxury brands are not ordinary companies. They are cultural assets. If you control the brand, protect the image, and discipline the business, the margins can become extraordinary. But he needed a bigger vehicle, one large enough to collect many luxury houses under one roof. That vehicle appeared in 1987, when Louis Vuitton merged with Moët Hennessy to create LVMH. On paper, it looked like a luxury marriage: leather goods, champagne, cognac, heritage, prestige. But inside the new company, the leadership was divided, and division is exactly what a strategist waits for. Arnault stepped into the conflict like a peacemaker, but he was playing a deeper game. He accumulated shares, built alliances, and positioned himself as the solution. In less than 2 years, he took control. The empire that began as a merger became his battlefield victory. This is the moment LVMH's modern identity was born, not as a loose collection of glamorous brands, but as a controlled federation. Each maison could keep its soul, its story, and its creative identity. But capital, discipline, real estate power, and strategic direction flowed from the center. The structure is brilliant because it solves luxury's biggest contradiction. Luxury must feel rare, emotional, and artistic. But public companies need growth, efficiency, and scale. LVMH learned how to hide the machine behind the dream. Above ground, Dior competes with Louis Vuitton. Fendi competes with Loewe. Bulgari competes with Tiffany. Every brand has its own personality. But underground, LVMH provides shared power, prime locations, legal strength, supply chains, data, talent, and financial patience. That is why LVMH can own brands that seem to compete without destroying their identity. The competition creates energy. The parent company captures the economics. To the customer, it feels like choice. To the shareholder, it looks like a portfolio of desire. The most powerful asset in this system is not leather or champagne. It is heritage. A new company can copy a bag shape. It can copy a perfume bottle. It can copy a storefront. But it cannot easily copy 100 years of cultural memory. LVMH understands that history is a moat. Louis Vuitton began as a trunk maker. Moët carries champagne ritual. Hennessy carries cognac heritage. Dior carries couture mythology. Tiffany carries American romance. These stories make products feel less like objects and more like membership cards. This is why pricing power works. A normal company raises prices and customers complain. A luxury brand raises prices, and some customers want the product more because the higher price becomes part of the signal. In luxury, expense is not always a flaw. Sometimes it is the feature. But pricing power only works if scarcity is believable. LVMH cannot flood the world with unlimited luxury and still call it exclusive. So the company manages distribution carefully, protects boutiques, controls discounting, and makes the customer feel like access is earned. That is the secret architecture of desire. The product is only one layer. Around it sits the store, the service, the waiting list, the celebrity, the runway show, the archive, the craftsmanship video, and the quiet feeling that not everyone can have it. Arnault's genius was not just buying brands, it was knowing which brands had enough emotional fuel to become global. LVMH bought names like Fendi, Celine, Bulgari, Moët, Belmont, and others, because each one carried a story that could be scaled. The playbook is consistent. Buy a heritage asset, protect the mythology, upgrade the stores, improve operations, raise desirability, expand globally without making the brand feel cheap. It sounds simple, but very few companies can execute all parts at once. The Tiffany deal showed how ruthless that playbook could become. LVMH agreed to buy Tiffany for around $16.2 billion, then the pandemic hit. Stores shut down, luxury demand froze. Arnault looked at the same deal and decided the price no longer made sense. What followed was corporate hardball. LVMH tried to walk away. Tiffany fought back. Lawyers entered. Pressure mounted. In the end, the price was cut to about $15.8 billion. For most companies, the difference would be huge. For Arnault, it was discipline. The Tiffany story reveals something important about LVMH. Romance is for the customer. Discipline is for the operator. The brand sells love, diamonds, proposals, and blue boxes. But behind the scenes, the empire negotiates like a cold financial machine. But old heritage alone is not enough. Luxury has to keep recruiting the next generation. A brand that only speaks to old money eventually becomes a museum. LVMH understood that youth culture was not a threat to luxury. It was the next engine. That is why collaborations mattered. Supreme with Louis Vuitton, Virgil Abloh at Louis Vuitton menswear, Fenty with Rihanna. These moves were not random celebrity experiments. They were signals that LVMH could turn culture itself into distribution. Luxury used to travel slowly through magazines, salons, and elite circles. Now it travels through Instagram, TikTok, music videos, athletes, influencers, and resale markets. LVMH does not just sell to youth. It studies how youth creates desire. This is the new luxury equation. Heritage gives credibility. Scarcity gives tension. Celebrity gives speed. And social media gives scale. Put them together and a product can become a status symbol before it even reaches the shelf. But while LVMH sells creativity, the control structure is deeply dynastic. The company is public, but the Arnault family remains extremely powerful through ownership and voting rights. This is not just a corporation. It is a corporate monarchy with a stock ticker. Arnault has placed his children in important roles across the empire. That does two things. It trains potential successors, and it signals to the market that LVMH is thinking beyond the next quarter. In luxury, patience is not soft. Patience is strategy. This long-term control gives LVMH a major advantage. It can protect brands from short-term panic. It can invest in stores, workshops, artisans, and image when weaker rivals cut back. It can think in decades because luxury itself is a decades-long game. But even the strongest empire has pressure points. After the pandemic, luxury enjoyed revenge spending. Customers released years of pent-up desire. But that boom could not last forever. Aspirational buyers started feeling squeezed. China became uneven. Price hikes began to bite. The numbers showed the slowdown. LVMH's revenue fell from 84.7 billion euros in 2024 to 80.8 billion euros in 2025. That is still enormous. But the direction matters. In luxury, growth is part of the story investors buy. When growth slows, the myth gets tested. The wines and spirits division became one of the clearest warning signs. Cognac and champagne are powerful symbols, but symbols still depend on demand, distribution, pricing, and culture. When consumers push back and workers push back, even a luxury bottle can become a pressure gauge. By late 2025, unions at parts of Moët Hennessy called strikes over bonus issues, while the division had already reported heavy profit pressure earlier that year. That matters because luxury depends on invisible labor, vineyard workers, artisans, sales teams, logistics, and people who keep the dream polished. There were also reputational cracks. LVMH's Olympic partnership put its craftsmanship image on a global stage. But when some Paris 2024 medals later showed deterioration, Chaumet's role in designing the medals pulled LVMH into uncomfortable headlines, even though manufacturing responsibility was separate. This is the danger of selling perfection. The more powerful the image, the more visible every crack becomes. When a company sells quality, heritage, and excellence, a single failure can feel larger than the product itself, because the product was never only physical. Animal welfare criticism is another pressure point for luxury houses that use exotic skins and animal-derived materials. These controversies do not instantly destroy demand, but they create tension between heritage craftsmanship and modern consumer values. The luxury customer is changing, and the empire has to adapt without looking weak. So the big question becomes, is LVMH invincible? The answer is no. No empire is. But LVMH is unusually resilient because it does not depend on one brand, one country, one product, or one customer segment. It is a portfolio built to absorb shocks. If fashion slows, beauty can help. If wines struggle, jewelry may hold. If aspirational buyers pull back, ultra-rich clients may keep spending. If one region weakens, another may recover. That is the advantage of owning the whole luxury ecosystem. And downturns can actually help the strongest players. Smaller brands lose funding. Weak competitors become cheaper. Landlords become more flexible. Talent becomes available. LVMH historically uses turbulence not only to survive, but to hunt. This is why Arnault's empire is so difficult to copy. It is not just big. It is patient, disciplined, diversified, and culturally embedded. A competitor can buy ads. A competitor can hire designers. But building a century-scale machine of desire requires time most investors do not have. The empire also controls the physical spaces where luxury is performed. Flagship stores are not just shops, they are theatres. Hotels are not just hotels, they are stages. Champagne is not just a drink, it is a ritual. LVMH owns pieces of the performance. Walk through certain corners of Paris, New York, Milan, or Tokyo, and you can see the strategy in real estate. The best locations create prestige, traffic, and visibility. The street becomes a showroom, and the showroom becomes a billboard you can walk inside. That is the real scale of LVMH. It does not merely own brands, it owns stories, locations, rituals, supply chains, creative talent, pricing power, and the customer journey from entry-level beauty to ultra-luxury experience. That is why it feels less like a company and more like a luxury operating system. But the uncomfortable truth is this: luxury only works if people keep believing. Believing the bag says something. Believing the box means romance. Believing the bottle means celebration. Believing the store means belonging. If belief weakens, pricing power weakens with it. Bernard Arnault did not invent desire. He engineered it. He took old houses, disciplined their operations, protected their myths, raised their reach, and turned heritage into compounding cash flow. That is the genius and the danger of the LVMH machine. So the next time you walk past a luxury boutique, look closer. Ask yourself, are you looking at a store, a brand, a dream, or a carefully engineered empire? Because in modern luxury, the name on the door may change, but behind the door, more often than you think, the machine belongs to LVMH. What do you think? Is LVMH the greatest luxury empire ever built, or is the luxury bubble finally starting to crack? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the story of inside LVMH, the luxury empire that owns the world's biggest brands, then you'll love the story of how the 2008 financial crisis broke the world. Click the video on your screen now. I'll see you there.